All right. Hi, everybody. My name is D. Lisa West. I'm a dream doula and well, I don't know. I'm just a human today.
I'm Cristina Spitero. I'm a human as well. I am a psychotherapist and relationship coach, and I help people remove the obstacles that are getting in their own way.
Right on. And we were talking just before we started to hit record was what about intuition and how can people
Mhm.
tap into their intuition and how do they know it's real? Like my mentor, I was listening to a recording she did that I've heard probably a dozen times, but every time I listen to it, I get something new. And she is a licensed minister, and she talks about biblical terms and
Mhm.
also movie references. So in there, she's talking about how there's the still small voice. The
Mhm.
the voice didn't come in the earthquake. It didn't come in the fire. It didn't come into this. It didn't come into that. It came in between those times as
I like.
just a quiet knowing. And and so, how do we know when life just yells at us all the time? There's like advertisements yelling at us, our internet is yelling at us, our social media is yelling, everything's like in your face, yeah, yeah, da, da. How can we tap into that quiet, subtle knowing that we all have the ability to tap into? Every one
Yeah.
of us.
Yes, 100%. Because I literally was just talking to someone about this, how, they were bemoaning the fact that every time they haven't listened to their instincts on something, they've regretted it. And I know
Mm,
I have totally experienced that too. Like when I let myself be talked out of something or into something, or I haven't listened to that little voice, I'm like, shoot, should have listened to my instincts. I would have been better off.
yeah. I mean,
So this,
one way you can look at it is like you're leaving your house in the morning and it's blue skies and you got this little idea. I should bring an umbrella. You're like, no, blue skies. And later on, it pours down rain and you're thinking,
yeah,
oh, should have brought
uh,
that umbrella. I thought about it and
exactly.
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it. Why didn't you do it? Why didn't you bring the umbrella? So that is, and it's interesting because literally every time I haven't listened to that voice, I've wished I had. So
Mm,
I think part of it is being sensitive to that. I think a lot of times we second guess ourselves too much, or we're
sure.
like, oh, I'm being silly, or why did I have that stray thought, or why did that worry me? So it's like, I think instead of questioning it, we need to embrace it. Like, for instance, if we're not sure about a situation or a job or a person, or why are you having that feeling? Like, just think about it. Like, don't push it away. Sit in it. Sit in it.
Right, right. And then the other idea I heard recently, which I love so much, is that if you have an idea, act on it in 5 seconds. Like if you
Mm,
have this like little idea that comes to your head and you're thinking, oh, that's interesting. The universe, spirit, whatever you call it, the quantum field, it
right.
gives us what we are going toward, not
Yes.
what we're thinking about in our heads. So when you
Right.
think about it
Right.
and you make a motion toward doing that thing, it's like, oh, you really want to do that thing? All right,
Yeah.
I'll give you
Yeah.
more. I'll give you more ideas. I'll give you
Yes.
more connections. And so maybe it's just which store should I go to today?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The regular grocery store where I always go, or the one on that other corner that I hardly ever go to? Should I go right or left? Should I take the subway or taxi or walk? Or, what should I do differently? And how is that going to connect me to something I don't even
Yes.
know yet?
Yes. Especially if you get that stray thought that's seemingly out of nowhere. Like, well, why am I telling myself to go to this different place that I normally don't go to? Why am
Yeah.
I getting the urge to do that? Or wait, this is closer. Why am I saying, no, 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 go to this one that's further away? But this would be more convenient. Why am I telling that? So sometimes there is that reason, there is that knowing. And I do believe in fate. I do believe in guardian angels. I do believe in heavenly wisdom guiding us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Idea
Yeah.
that, and again, I don't tell anybody what to believe. Everybody has their own spiritual journey, and I thoroughly respect that. But I do feel that there is help out there if you want it. there is help out there if you seek it, you
Right. And
know?
I can think of two great historical references. Like, do y'all know who Salvador Dali was? He was an artist. He did these fantastical paintings where like melt watches were
Mhm.
melting and things were dripping. Well, he got his ideas by falling asleep for just a few moments in his art studio. And in that liminal space between sleeping and waking, he would get
Mhm.
an idea of some image. And when he woke up from this short nap, because he held a big key in his hand and a big plate underneath it. So when he dropped the key because he fell asleep, he would wake up and he would sketch what he was thinking about in this liminal dream state. And so did, um, oh, what's his name? The guy that invented the light bulb. What's his name?
Thomas Edison.
Thank you. Thomas Edison, who had more than 1,000 patents to his name when he died. That's
Mm,
how he got his ideas in his studio. He would take little cat
really?
naps, and he had, I heard, ball bearings in his hands and buckets underneath. So he sat in this comfortable chair and he nodded off while he was really trying to figure out an answer to a particular conundrum. It's like, how am I going
Huh.
to make this work? And he would fall asleep. The ball bearings would fall into the buckets. He'd wake up and he would write down what he was dreaming about, thinking about in this liminal state. And that's how they
Wow,
accessed the wisdom that's just everywhere all around us.
that's fascinating. I love that.
So sometimes you get an idea, and
Mhm,
sometimes you get an idea as you're falling asleep or
mhm,
waking up
mhm.
or taking a shower. Haven't you had brilliant ideas in the shower or the bath?
That is true. That is true.
Water is really, really helpful.
Yep.
Also, walking,
Hmm.
meditating,
Yes. Uh,
driving. If you drive a lot, lots of really great ideas come to people when they're just spacing out and driving a usual road that they go on every day.
I agree with you. I do think there's a lot of inspiration to be found. You know what it is? Because when you are taking a shower or going for a walk or driving, you are not consumed with the act of doing something. It's like
Yes.
kind of something you're doing on rote. Because usually, if you're driving or you're walking or you're taking, like these are things that you don't have to really think about. So you're kind of just doing it, or sort of like automatic pilot with the activity. So it allows your brain to sort of wander and see where it takes you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so great. So if you really want to have an answer to something that you're pondering, it's there. The
Yes.
theory is the answers to everything are always present. We just
Mm-hmm.
have to figure out how to tap into them. So the answer to that thing that you've been searching for is there. You just have
Yeah.
to realize how you can ask the question and how you can
Yeah.
get the answer. Now,
Yeah.
have you ever worked with autonomic or automatic writing, I think it's called?
Well, this is what's really interesting. I was watching this interview with this woman who she spoke about it, but she also spoke what she called spiritual writing,
Mm,
which I thought was really, really interesting. She made like a little distinction, and she spoke of how automatic writing, you're almost like not thinking about it, you're sort of just letting it happen. But she said with spiritual writing, you're actually inviting the spirit to come and guide you.
I love it.
Yeah. And she said, in a way, it's more purposeful,
Hmm.
and you're really more purposely tapping into your connection with the divine.
Right. So in that situation, did she ask you to write, like ask a question to your higher self and then wait for
Yeah,
the answer and write it down?
exactly, exactly. And the
Yeah.
idea was the whole concept of it is too that you basically are putting yourself in the place and space to do that.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
I know people who talk about writing letters to God, writing letters to Jesus, writing letters, because again, the idea being that what you are thinking about, what you are purposely doing action towards, could that be something that leads you to that? So if you are asking of your higher self, or if you are asking of God, you're doing that, or even something as simple as saying a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we think, you know, we've made, like, prayer is really so simple. It's basically you having a conversation with God and saying, now, a lot of times you think about it, oh, I want this, I want that. No, it can also be like, it's like picking up a spiritual phone and saying, I'm struggling with this. Can you give me guidance in this area? Can you help me to know what it is I should be doing, or what might be the most beneficial? It can be anything. It could be anything. Like, it could be something as simple as, you know, first you got to put yourself in a good place. Because if you're in a place of pure anxiety, pure fear, it's going to be all that cuckoo. It's going to be all that stuff that's going to hold you back. But you take a deep breath and you just envision surrounding yourself, bathe yourself in beautiful white light, and say, God, or again, people have different belief systems, and I honor that. Whatever your belief system is, say, God, or whatever higher power, what do you want me to know now? What would be the most helpful to me in this moment to move forward in this direction?
Right. And that would be a beautiful way to do that in your journal. If you're having a conversation with your higher self or
Mhm,
God or spirit or the universe,
mhm.
ask the question in your journal and then see what comes back. And did this person doing the talk about spiritual journaling or journaling with God do right hand, left hand, or just did it
Um,
matter?
well, it was interesting because when they were talking about the distinction between autonomic writing and all that stuff, they were saying how for people who just aren't thinking about it automatic, a lot of times they didn't even recognize their own handwriting. But if
Mm,
you are actually being purposeful, a lot of times you will recognize your handwriting, and that it didn't matter so much what you did or even the name you used, but just that you were making yourself open to that spiritual higher self in a positive way. I liked the idea of the positivity because, again, we tend to be very negative. And when we're in a negative space and we're in a space of fear, it's hard. A lot of times that is what will come through. So what I like to do when I want to put myself in a more centered space is release the negativity, release the fear. And again, this is where I like bathing myself. Just envision myself with like the Holy Spirit, white light, because it puts me in a more positive place of receiving and not from a place of fear and negativity.
yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, a lot of people just turn to their God, so to speak, when they're in
Mhm.
trouble
Yeah,
and forget to have conversations when they're having a great time. Like, thank you for
yeah,
this beautiful life.
exactly.
Yay.
Exactly, exactly. You know, and that's the thing. It's like if you, and again, anybody who's watching, I respect anyone's belief system. I'm not telling anyone what to believe at all. But what I will say is this: if you do believe in God, or you do believe in a higher power, you do believe, you think of God as like this ultimate parent. It's like if you only call to ask your parents for money,
Mm,
like literally only called, hey, mom, dad, yeah, I need this. And that was literally the only time you ever called. What kind of relationship are you actually going to have with them? Where when you call them to say, you know what, thanks for this good life, or you know what, I listened to some beautiful music the other day and I was remembering how you took me to concerts, and thank you for exposing me to that. So it's also having appreciation for what you have, because it's very easy to lapse into, I used to tell, when I started my work with children and then I have nieces and nephews, I used to tell them, don't worry about what you don't have, appreciate what you do have,
that's beautiful.
you know, because how many of us really fully appreciate what we do have, or appreciate this moment that we're in? Because we're always looking to, oh, when this happens, when that happens, I talk to a lot of clients about this. Don't defer happiness.
Yeah.
Why are you deferring your happiness. Oh, I'll be happy when I get that job. I'll be happy to get that apartment. I'll be happy to have that relationship. Okay. So what would it take for you to be happy right now? Why are you deferring happiness? Because the problem is if you keep putting happiness off to some future event, and don't get me wrong, I thoroughly recognize people having a difficult time and having difficult experiences. And I am no stranger to going through my own journeys and crying to God and, just being in a lot of pain, but at the same time, still being able to find joy in your moment. And that's where your intuition comes in too, because your intuition is often that little voice that will allow you to still seek out those positive moments or those moments that maybe give you that little bit of cover. Like, get that umbrella because it's going to rain even though you don't think it will.
Right.
Or bring that sunscreen to the beach because you are going to get burned. Or any little thing like that. Or you know what? Maybe you want to move that thing that you like so much away from the edge because it's going to fall and it's going to break and then you're going to be upset. A
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
like that. Like those
Yeah.
little intuition moments are little pockets of potential happiness. And when we listen to them, we are looking into the pocket.
That's so beautiful. And thank you for bringing it back to intuition because we got off topic slightly. But the whole idea that intuition is connected to the quantum field, to the God
Mhm.
energy that we all live inside of. So all the answers for everything you ever want to seek are in there,
Yes.
just waiting for you to find them,
Yes.
waiting for you to have faith enough to take that first step. And we were talking about like, what's a good image in a movie where you have to really believe that something's going to appear, but you have to take the first step first.
Well, a great image which we were talking about, and I just love, it was the third Indiana Jones movie, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where he's, they've got now that they're supposed to be the cup of Christ, that, the idea that he's trying to now seek it because he's trying to, if anyone's not seeing the movie, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. So the bad guys, aka the Nazis, were after the chalice supposed to be the cup of Christ. So they were trying to get a hold of it, and Indy's father, who he reunites within this movie after an estrangement, was also been looking at it for many years. So they're at these cross purposes, and basically the Nazis want it, and they want to kind of force Indy to go get it for them because it involves this whole series of tests. And so they actually shoot his father because now the idea is the cup of Christ is supposed to have like healing water that would heal him. So he has to go through this cave, and this idea of leap of faith to go across this path. Now, it doesn't look like there's anything there. It looks like you've got this one giant cliff thing here, one giant cliff thing there, and just a chasm that if you're going to fall in and die. So there's seemingly no bridge between these two cliffs that he needs to cross. But the idea is, and he's very good at reading all the clues and everything, the idea of leap of faith. And he literally pushes forward, makes his foot go forward, and all of a sudden, the bridge appears between the two cliffs that he can walk across and get from one side to the other. The leap of faith. So the idea being that you might be like, okay, I don't know how in the world I'm going to get that job. I don't know how in the world this relationship is going to work. I don't know how in the world I'm going to do this or do that. But sometimes if you do that leap of faith, it may not look like there's a bridge for that chasm, but there is. And the intuition might be the little clue in your head that says, take a leap of faith or move forward. And you can do that. And before you know it, you're crossing that bridge across the chasm and getting what it is you need.
Right on. And it could just be as simple as which store do you go to today?
Exactly.
Or turning right or turning left, taking a
Yes.
bus or walking. Because haven't you ever been like in the wrong place at the wrong time and then suddenly you see an old friend there and they
Yes.
invite you to some cool thing that you never would have been invited to before? That you weren't in the wrong place and it wasn't the wrong time. It was
Right.
exactly the perfect time.
You were exactly where you needed to be at exactly the moment you meant to
Yeah.
be at. 100%.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because again, I think there is a plan to life. I think there is a purpose. And I feel for people who have suffered and gone through trials. They're like, you mean to tell me there's a plan for my suffering? You know what? I do think there is. I think it's part of the spiritual journey. And I do think there are people who have gone through some horrendous things. But then do you ever notice people who like battled like some horrible thing? And then because of that, they wound up becoming an advocate, or they wound up doing something or finding something or helping people in a way that they wouldn't have been inspired to otherwise if not for this thing.
Oh, almost every person who's had a big impact. In fact, some of the people that you wouldn't think had a big impact, but they impacted so many people in their community, they have hard stories. And
Yes,
almost to a person, if
yes,
they're aware of it, they say, I wouldn't wish that experience on anybody else,
yes,
but I
yes,
wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't done it.
yes. That's always the line, right? I wouldn't wish this experience. I wouldn't ask for it again, but I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if not for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, I'm not saying, and again, this is going to sound so Pollyanna-ish, but I think there really can be something found in everything, but you have to be looking for it. And it's hard. And I'm not saying it's easy, because trust me, I've gone through some stuff where I'm like, oh God, why did I have to go through that? Couldn't have been a little bit easier. But then I recognized later that if I hadn't gone through that, I was actually prepared for the next thing. And that is what I find very, very interesting. I remember someone sending me a cartoon once, and the first panel of the cartoon, this person had like this giant cross on their back, right? Like they were carrying this thing, and they're like, God, can you please make this thing smaller? This is too much. I can't handle it. So it gets whittled down a little bit. And in each panel, he's asking for it to get whittled down, whittled down. And then in the last panel, there seems to be a theme here of cliffs and chasms. There's these two ends of a cliff and this big chasm. And for the people that have the big giant crosses, they're able to use it as a bridge across.
Oh, wow.
But this guy's whittled down little thing is not big enough for him to make it across.
Wow.
So
That's a
I'm not,
great image.
I love that image. So I'm not saying you got to be thrilled with the stuff, but if you can try to find the underpinning of it, like, did I learn anything from this? Did this help me grow as a person in any way? Did this lead me to something that maybe can help somebody else?
Yeah. Yeah. So beautiful. Okay, so a couple ways I listen to my intuition. If I get a thought more than 3 times, it's like, hello, you better do something about it. Because
Mm-hmm.
haven't you all, probably everyone that's still listening to this conversation has had a brilliant thought, like $1 million idea that they didn't do anything about. And then 6 months later, 1 year later, they see that $1 million idea. Someone else is doing it and they're
Yeah.
very successful. They're like, dang,
Yeah.
I had that idea,
That
but
could
I
have been
didn't.
me.
That could have been me, having like the best fill in the blank, whatever. So, so yeah, if you get an idea, listen to it. Maybe
Mhm,
start with baby steps, like where should I park or what store should I go to? But
mhm,
other than that, I started just listening to myself. Like I thought the other day, I wonder how Dana is. I haven't talked to her for a while. I'm gonna
mm.
call her on the phone. And I was like, I didn't call her. And a few hours later, I was like, I wonder how Dana is. I was like, okay, I better do my thing that I
Better
told my
call Dana.
so I called Dana. She was so happy to hear from me and we caught up and she told me all about this and that. And then in the conversation, I found that she had a need for something that she needed in her life and I had the person that I could connect her to.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, I maybe that's why I called her. Maybe I just called her
Maybe
to
that's
say hi. We don't know.
either way. You don't know. Or sometimes, someone may just need that pick me up.
Sure, sure.
And so if especially I will say if your intuition is telling you to give somebody a call, give them a call.
Right on. Yeah. If we leave you with anything, it's that. Thinking of
Yes.
somebody, call them on the phone. People
Calm on
like
the
to hear from friends.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Christina, it's been lovely as usual.
Thank you so much. I love our chats.